So if you've been following my arrow build series, I showed you that I use the ram tool to kind of find the most consistent spine, the spot with the most consistent spine, and that's how I was setting my cock vane. Um, I actually took it further and I did some testing, some researching. So what I started doing is actually, if you can see, I move these in, and what I do is I will check for that specific, I'll check for the most consistent spine in 3 different spots. So here, the very center, and then as far back as I can test it. And I'll basically take the average of the 3, and that's where I will put my mark. And you can see that there's a mark there. This is where, and that's where I set the knock to. And this is, I found it's a good system of doing it. But we met up with my buddy Chris Escarcega from Arizona Archery Club, and he showed me how he does it. And he likes to set his cock vane on the weakest point so that he gets the arrow flex will be straight up when it leaves the arrow. The idea here is really just to get the most consistency. You're trying to get the arrow to leave the bow the same way every time, and every arrow to leave the same way every time. So I'm going to show you how Chris does it, and it's kind of a neat technique, and I think I actually might start doing it his way because it seems to be even more effective.
When I'm building an arrow, one of the things I'll check for is I'll index not necessarily where the spine is of the arrow, where it's weaker or stiffer, but where the arrow is naturally going to want to flex. And one of the ways I'll do it is I'll use one of these tools and put my arrow in it, and it's going to put pressure on the center of the shaft. And what it allows me to do is, you can't really see it, but you can feel it where the arrow naturally wants to kind of get stuck into a valley. If I spin the arrow about right here, it's where it kind of gets stuck. And then if I go 180 degrees, you can feel where you kind of reach a peak in the arrow. So it's telling you that where the arrow naturally wants to flex is going to be down this way, according to where the shaft is. So when I fletch an arrow, I'll find where it naturally wants to flex downward. I'll simply take my thumb and put it on the top part of the shaft. I'll take it out, and then I'll mark it 180 degrees. Now, doing it isn't necessarily gonna say this is the right way to do it or the wrong way to do it, but it makes all the arrows the same by doing that. And then, so to verify how the arrow is gonna flex, I'm gonna put it in the press, which I would not recommend doing because you can easily blow up an arrow or hurt yourself. But by doing so, you'll be able to see the direction that the arrow is naturally wanting to flex. If you look at it, the mark is right there. If you look at it from the side, the arrow is bowing to the top. Like I was saying before, it doesn't necessarily make or break an arrow. It just takes you a step further for consistency. And as far as this goes, this is just the way that I do it. Where the arrow bends to the top, I'll put my cock vane right here, or if I'm four-fletching an arrow, my top 2 vanes are going to be sitting on either side of this line, and then when I put my knock on, I'll index it so that always goes up in my bow. The important part of it is that you just do it the same. So if you're going to put your cock vane here or cock vane on the bottom, as long as you do it the same in all your arrows, it should make them a little bit more consistent.
And to do that bend, you put 2 glue-in style. You didn't glue them in.
Two glue-in style target points is what I used to test it. Like I said, I wouldn't really recommend somebody going and pressing their arrows.
And you have it set up here where
it can be kind of dangerous, but
where it's already like perfect in the center of either.
It just kind of shows what the arrow is going to do. When an arrow comes out of a bow, it's going to flex one way or another. So if you have your arrows all coming out where they're flexing this way, or even if they're left and right, as long as they're always doing it the same, then it'll make the arrows a little bit more consistent and kind of have to, it'll minimize your knock tuning.
Right, because once it's all consistent, then it's just a matter of moving your sight to the impact point. If they're all coming out of the arrow, the bow the same. The arrow's all coming out the same, regardless if that's the strongest or if it's the weakest or whatever. That's the main goal, is to get them to come out the same way and hit the same spot.
Correct.